Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron channel. I'm Steve Shaw. Massive Iron Live with Robert Shinetsky, the supplement engineer. Robert, thanks for joining me. This is something I look forward to every week, and I'm glad you can invest the time. Last week we ran about, almost 2 hours. It was crazy. So, Robert, how are things going down in your end of the world?
Pretty good overall. Business has been more or less stable for me from a writing and consultation standpoint, so that's always a good thing. I'm very thankful and fortunate for that. Sandy's wrapping up her last week of school teaching, so she had to go up to the high school yesterday, and all the students were returning their books and whatnot. She's grading finals, and other than that, we're a couple of the counties in Texas are even more relaxed because they haven't had any outbreaks. So we're venturing over to those counties and getting out of Travis County, where the little tyrant mayor is still trying to say, stay inside, don't do anything, don't be a human being, and all that stuff. So we're going to go visit one of our favorite distilleries out in Burnett County called Iron Wolf. I'm going to go buy another bottle of bourbon from them and support their processes over there.
That sounds good. Anybody that's joining us, we'll be on as long as you guys have questions. So just flood us with questions. It can be anything: nutrition, supplementation, lifting, off topic, whatever, rants, raves. If you want to tell Robert he's sexy, we're up for that as well. So feel free to post up your questions. Let us know how you're doing, where you're from, if your gyms are open, if you're hanging tough, if you're eating like a pig during the lockdown, all that kind of good stuff. Stan from Norway is checking in already. Just a little bit of humor to kick off. I made a video about Robert Pattinson, and whenever you make a video that goes semi-viral, you get new people to your channel, and the comments I got, you get a new degree of hate. My face is too round to be taken seriously. Just to let you know, it's a crazy thing. People ask me to grow my beard, and when I grow my beard, my face looks rounder. Mm-hmm. And then when I shave it off, I look like 10 years younger, so I can't win. Either I look 42 or I look, my age. So,
the YouTube comment section is a cesspool unto itself. It's on all the years that Sandy and I have been doing supplement reviews and protein powder tastings and all that. One of the most recent ones we got is, what is she on? Like, they think she's hopped up on meth or cocaine or something. Or the other one is, that's got to be an act. She's not really like that in real life. And anybody that's ever spent time around Sandy, she doesn't take in a whole lot of caffeine, if any, some days. And she's never used any drugs, and she's just naturally. I've known her since 2000, so I've known her 20 years. We've been married 11 years in July, and we've been dating since 2002, so 18 years total. She has always been like that. This super exuberant person, and it's always funny when you get these random comments from people and they don't really quite understand what's going on. And the other thing I want to be curious about is, how shitty is your day or your life going that the only thing you can contribute to the world is some kind of nasty negative comment on somebody's YouTube channel?
Right. What's funny to me is that, if you look on Instagram, it's all positivity. Like, Instagram and Facebook are like polar opposites. Instagram is like motivational posts and motivational quotes and acceptance and self-love. And then you go over to like Facebook, and it's like all fighting over COVID or whatever the bullshit of the day is. Yep. And then you go into YouTube, and it's like a step down. It's like a mosh pit of deviance, and everybody will critique you over everything. So it's just crazy. My wife's super energetic as well. Mm-hmm. I'm energetic. I'm just more like a bulldozer. I keep going at low speed. Riley tuning in. Hey, Riley, how's it going? You guys post up your questions. We'll get to everything. And if we miss your questions, it's not us. It is YouTube. So you can head over to Instagram at @BenTheBarman, slide into my DM with your question. Robert is the supplement engineer. You can follow his podcast. Search the Supplement Engineer. Follow him on Instagram, on YouTube, the Supplement Engineer. Just a real quick personal note. Yesterday, I had a really good friend of mine pass away, David Clarke. David Clarke was interviewed on this channel. He lost 100 pounds, set aside alcohol, went on to run 100-mile races, and he went into the hospital for routine back surgery and never woke up. He has a new book out called Eat Shit and Die, and it's linked down below. And I would appreciate if you could support it. Even if you're not a vegan. David was a vegan, but the overall message of not eating shit is something I always support. So I'm kind of struggling today with a loss of a friend, but check out that link below. All right, let's see what we got today. We got Slim working out at home gym as always, running 5 miles every day. No excuses. Love to hear that and love that combination. We got Antonio from Brazil. Been on adventures. Hey, fellas, hope all is well. Random, but the barbell overhead press is becoming one of my favorite lifts. Anybody that says the barbell overhead press is becoming one of my favorite lifts is on a path to success. Because if you can get that lift strong, you're probably going to get everything else strong.
Steve, did you ever, this is an issue I've had with the barbell overhead press. Usually I default to dumbbells when I'm doing that, or, pike presses, or, wall assisted handstand push-ups or something. Whenever I'm pressing, I don't know if my right arm is that significantly stronger than my left, or my left arm is slightly shorter than my right. But whenever I push up, the barbell is going like this, and it's going up. And then, so even when I lock out, my right hand is still above my left.
Yeah, man, I have a client that is pretty darn strong on overhead presses. He's like doing 170s for multiple sets of 10, but he's got that going on. I will tell you that after 35 years of lifting, almost 35, when I do dumbbell overhead presses, I always have to do my left arm first because it's weaker. And that's a pretty common thing. Some people are always looking for the magic formula to fix uneven degrees of strength, unilateral issues. And honestly, mine have never self-corrected. All you can really do is get both sides stronger. So,
right.
All right, what do we got? Stan from Norway. I just got a new hex bar for my gym. That's excellent.
Awesome. Love the hex bar.
All right, Robert, we got the first supplement question from Greg. Any benefit for taking Casein?
Yeah, casein, so it's one of the other proteins in milk. So milk's got whey, which accounts for 20% of the protein, and casein is the 80%, the other 80% in milk. The benefit to casein that everybody kind of hopped on the hype train about it, was that it's a slower digesting. It can take between 6 to 8 hours, and it actually kind of coagulates in your stomach into this really thick, viscous gel that takes a super slow time to pass through the intestinal tract and the GI tract, and then releases a much more sustained, slow release of amino acids into the bloodstream. The issue is that it doesn't have as quite high of a leucine content as whey protein, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal. You're not going to go catabolic if you don't have protein right before bed. That was the whole thing why you should either take cottage cheese, because that's basically casein, or have a casein shake before bed. It might be a good idea to have some protein before you go to bed, just so that you are supporting, the body's natural recovery and growth mechanisms and processes while you're sleeping. But there's not any substantially magical, unique benefit to casein aside from any other protein source. It might help hunger a little bit better since it's slower digesting, but if you're consuming enough protein otherwise during the day, then there's nothing magical about it.
Thanks, Robert. You guys keep the questions coming. We'll stand as long as you want. David Potter, hello from Arizona, where the gyms are open. Glad to hear that. What's your number one tip for someone trying to keep their muscle mass while trying to lose weight? I just did a phone consultation before this, and I was talking with someone about this very subject. You have to focus, you have to understand the things you can control and focus on the things you can control. What can you control? You can control consistency in diet and protein intake. So you need to set a calorie target and a protein target, and you need to hit that nearly every day, come close. You need to be consistent with your workouts. So if you are doing that, that's all you can control. Everything beyond that is just random luck. That's the way the cards are going to be played. So the one thing I want to stress is if you're doing everything you need to do correctly, if you lose a hair of muscle mass and you're only losing 15 pounds, muscle memory is a real thing. And after a month or two of getting back to more maintenance level, if you've lost a little bit of muscle mass, it's going to come back. So don't panic. Just be reasonable with your cut. a slight calorie deficit, hit it every day, get your protein intake every day, and bust your balls in the gym. Robert, anything to add?
No, is it consume at least 1 gram, 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per day. Be consistent with resistance training. Those are the two most powerful stimuluses or stimuli for the body to retain muscle mass. And I would say even if it looks like you may have lost muscle, you may not actually have done that. Anytime you lose weight, you're probably going to lose some glycogen in there too. So it may seem like your muscles get a little bit smaller, but you're not actually losing muscle mass. It's just glycogen and water retention that you might be losing. So don't panic. The body is going to be resistant to dropping those adaptations that it's spent years accumulating. So, consume enough protein, train hard, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think there's a really big fear, and a lot of it comes, from, people profit off fear in this industry.
Yep.
So whenever there's a fear, there's going to be somebody profiting off something, and there's going to be a lot of hype around it. It's really, really difficult in the long run to lose muscle mass that you've built. If it temporarily goes away to a very minor degree, it'll come back. You're not going to lose much at all during a cut. So just continue to train properly. Slim, I'm really sad to hear about David Clarke's passing. You and me both, me and David had I almost went with David on his month-long journey. He was biking all to the the NHL cities, and I was set to go with David for a month. And I just can't believe it. David once told me, he goes, "You're like a brother to me. You're one of the few people that I feel like I have a bond with." And, somebody like David, we're the same type of people. We've been along the same journeys. We really connected. And it's just unsettling to see somebody so positive die for such a random reason. All right, Thaddeus, what's going on? Thaddeus is a client of mine. Apparently, he is now Unique Love, the professional wrestler. Thaddeus is now Unique Love, the professional wrestler. All right, Woodulus, how can I gain 41 pounds of dry muscle in 6 months? Robert, I'm gonna make a couple of suggestions, and I want you to make a couple of suggestions. Number one, chronic masturbation is a cornerstone. I would make sure you're masturbating at least 8 times a day. And if you can't reach that standard, just try to use progressive overload. I would also consider at least 400 grams of protein a day, not only to help you build that muscle, but to replenish all the is expungement a word, Robert? Is that the right word? All right, Robert, go ahead. How can you build 41 pounds of dry muscle in 6 months?
Definitely super high volumes with the lightest weights that you can do. Light weights, high reps, that's what builds muscle, especially dry muscle. Don't eat after 6 o'clock at night. Otherwise, it's going to go to fat. So make sure if you want lean, dry muscle, just eat during the daylight hours. Preferably between like 10 and 6. That'd be fine. That aligns with your circadian biology and maximizes your muscle building potential.
You've never seen a vampire with a lot of muscle mass, and they eat at night.
Nope,
so
exactly.
I would also consider zebra spandex or lycra for your workouts.
Leopard print's also, approved as well. And a fanny pack. Fanny pack ups your gains by 10%.
It's funny, but in 1989, I actually had zebra lycra that I wore training. It was the 80s, so all of you can eat a bag of dicks. It's just what it was.
Hey, the 80s was the greatest decade ever. I'm convinced of it.
So, Slim, I just finished David's book, Broken Open. You can check out a link below to his newest book, Eat Shit and Die. I was mentioning phone consults earlier. If anybody wants a phone consult, I dropped a link below to that as well. All right, Braden. Hello from the UK. Hope all is well in the UK. Oh, excuse me. This is making me a little gassy today. A few questions from me. Firstly, can you recommend any books on lifting? And second, do you have any ways and methods to help someone stop program hopping? Robert, any books on lifting, paperback or ebooks that you really believe are top quality?
Yeah, I like the Muscle and Strength Pyramids by Eric Helms and the 3D MJ crew. That's a really good one. Scientific Principles of Strength Training by Mike Israetel, Dr. Mike, and the Renaissance Periodization guys. They're also supposed to be releasing the Scientific Principles of Hypertrophy. I don't know if that's actually been released yet. Any of Steve's books are great. Your books are awesome. I've purchased a couple of them. The Power Muscle Block course, or Power Muscle Burn. The original Massive Iron book I got several years back. What are some other good books on lifting? Some of the classical ones. I mean, you could put Arnold's Encyclopedia in lifting, but that's more of just for historical context to see where, lifting and bodybuilding has kind of progressed. And from like an athlete's training standpoint, check out some of the stuff by Mike Boyle if you're more interested in some of the periodization and lifting practices that go with collegiate and professional athletes.
I was just looking over at my bookshelf. What I like to do, and I'm going to recommend something that's not a book, but I would check out the website Tight Tan Slacks of Des Doban. Robert, you ever heard of that site?
I haven't, no.
All right. Anybody that's watching this, go over to the website Tight Tan Slacks of Des Doban. Don't be scared. It's not a porn. It's not a porn site, but this is a resource. It's basically the history of lifting on a website. Programs from everything, powerlifting, bodybuilding, classics to modern. This website, you will lose your mind and you will lose months of time on it. And if you want a good resource that's not a book, I actually mirrored this website to my computer because I'm afraid it's going to disappear and we're going to lose this wealth of information. It is that good. Beyond that, I like to get a lot of the classic books to see what the old school guys did before information overload. Because, hey, yes, it's not always scientific, but you can learn a lot from what people did before they had any science to get results. And you can kind of align that with what we're doing today. So there are a lot of good classic books out there. And to the second question, do you have any ways to help someone stop program hopping? I've made many videos about this. Program hopping is a cancer, and it's based on the false belief that if you unlock a magic combination that you are going to start packing on muscle mass. It's a mental issue. You need to get, and this is going to sound overly aggressive, but you need to get your head out of your ass. The things that I teach, consistency, a reasonable amount of volume, a progressive overload plan, a focus on compound movements, and consistency in nutrition, that stuff works. If you look at all the lifters, all the successful lifters in powerlifting and bodybuilding and whatever, if you look at the common factors that create their success, it's not a program. It's all these core principles, and the program is fit around their end goals, their weaknesses, etc. Robert, do you have anything to add?
It's exactly like you said. It's a mental thing. There are no magic exercises that are going to untap, limitless gains for you. There's no magic diet. I've got a buddy, a guy that was coming to me for nutrition consultation, kind of like you, and he keeps saying every week, or I can almost guarantee it's like Thursday night of every week, he comes on, he says, I'm ready to lose weight, I'm ready to lose belly fat, but I think I should tone first and build muscle. What diet should I recommend? And I'm thinking, I've sent him, by this point, 5 different articles that I've written on how to structure your diet and do all these things. And just last night he says, well, I've read about the paleo diet. I think that's good for a calorie deficit. What do you think of the paleo diet? And every time it's the exact same thing. There is no magic. It is following the core basic principles and just working those principles consistently over time. Bust your ass in both training and nutrition, and you will do it. That'll obliterate any need to search for a magic quick fix for anything.
Yeah, I equate it to like someone standing at the base of a mountain. And, you have 2 types of guys at the base of the mountain. The guy that's just going to drive up the damn mountain and learn a few things along the way. And then the other guy who's going to overthink everything, study techniques, go out and buy the best ropes, the best carabiners, the best shoes, the best, sparkly little tights, whatever the fuck they wear. And then he's going to go on forums and compare all this stuff. And then he's going to learn this technique and that technique, and he's going to get confused. And then in the meantime, the other guy's already halfway to California over a 7 mountain already. there are some things that really help, but you need to learn to filter this crap out and focus on the important thing. At the end of the day, if you're not in the gym busting your ass, none of this stuff matters. So.
Right. And I suffered from like the first few years in training. I mean, I'm sure most people have gone through the program hopping phase. It's something you get over, and it's just, you got to get your mind right and just start busting your ass. That's all it is.
And I approached ultra running from the same way. At some point, you just need to get in there and attack progression, whether it's running or lifting, and then learn along the way without doing anything extreme and punishing your body. I didn't go into ultra running overly saturated with information because I knew I would learn a lot. The key thing I went into that, and this is the same key thing people need to do with lifting, is just safely attack progression. Don't get ahead of yourself. Allow yourself some time to learn a few things. Nigel, sorry to hear about your friend. My condolences. Thank you. Riley, if I gain some weight using creatine, will I lose the weight if I stop supplementing with creatine? Robert, I'm going to jump in here first. The weight you're gaining from creatine isn't fat, so it doesn't matter, okay? If you gain any weight. The weight is going to be muscular in nature. So stop looking at it as bad weight. Robert, any thoughts?
Yeah, the way creatine is going to affect your weight is it's going to cause you to store more water intracellularly in your muscles. So if anything, you'd be gaining in the first couple of weeks of creatine supplementation, you might gain 2 to 4 pounds of water weight, but it's not a bad thing. And if you stop supplementing with creatine over the course of a month, you might lose 2 to 4 pounds of just enhanced hydration that you would have gotten when you were taking creatine. So it's not going to affect your physique. It's not bad weight gain. It's not horrible or anything like that. It's water being stored in your muscles.
And Riley, I think I misread your question first way around. I think after reading it again, you're kind of concerned if I gain a little bit of creatine muscle weight, will I look completely different after I get off creatine? No, creatine will be, more of a, for me, it's more of a performance thing, in an endurance thing and all that kind of good stuff. I really don't. Robert, is there any research about what the actual difference in muscle size it might create due to water retention?
It would be something that you would only be able to assess probably via ultrasound. I mean, we're not talking going from like a 16-inch arm to a 14-inch arm. Nothing on that magnitude at all. No,
very trivial. This is my client, Robert, so he's just being a smart ass.
That's fine.
Unique Love, the professional wrestler. Look how this guy has an anonymous avatar. At least put up an avatar if you're going to take cheap shots at my man. Why does he like training arms?
It's the same reason. I don't like training calves either. It's just I always just feel slightly. I don't know. I enjoy, I guess, more full body or compound exercises. I like dips. I like chin ups. I like push ups, overhead presses, squats, lunges, those kind of things. Body weight tricep extensions are okay. Overhead extensions are fine. I think it's more just curls, because I always just feel silly doing curls, and it's probably because I'm just weak with them. They're not my strong suit, so I don't like them. That's why.
No, not a lot of things make me insecure in the gym, but when I do curls, I feel like I'm trying to find a politically correct word to insert here. Doofus, a fuckhead, whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm the anti-bro when it comes to arm training. I've never really much enjoyed it. It's okay. I do it because I know I need to.
Yeah. All right. Brian Funderburg. Hey, guys. Brian from Gainesville, Georgia. I started seriously training last year at the age of 40. Question, can I still expect to gain muscle after 40? Absolutely. Yep. I didn't reach my peak strength till like 46 to 49. Those were my peak years and my peak size years. So absolutely focus on it's really imperative for anybody over 40 to focus on diet and cleaning up your diet as much as possible and being consistent. You also have to be very careful, listen to your body. Don't just randomly do exercises that people tell you to do on the internet because they're magical. And if you don't do them, you're going to lose all your gains. You got to listen to your body, especially after the age of 40. Robert, any thoughts?
Nope. You summed it up exactly well right there, Steve.
All right. We got Nigel Helmer. Working shoulders and arms right now while listening. Get after it, man. Hope you have a good workout and a good weekend. Bobby, sorry for your loss of David Clarke. Prayers for you, his family, and friends. Lean on us, brothers of iron, if you need. Thank you. I appreciate the sentiments. We're doing 4 marathons in 4 days in December at Four Corners. And I actually challenged David to take me on because I needed some motivation because I really wanted to show up and beat him. But, you know, I'm going to kind of dedicate my training now through then for David. Logan, thoughts on carb cycling for muscle building? Unnecessary. Robert, thoughts?
Agreed. It's you're adding another layer of complexity to something that doesn't need to be inserted. So you're making your life more complicated, tedious, and stressful than it otherwise should be.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes guys will say, I'm more spent after squats. I want to eat more. Hey, that's listening to your body, right? Yeah. As long as you're eating more good quality food, have at it. Just don't order an extra large Marco's pizza or anything like that, and you're good to go.
Right. And the danger I think some people get into a carb cycling is that, well, they think they didn't train hard enough that day, so then they're not going to eat as much. And by the end of the week, they're not going to be in that calorie surplus that they need to, support the muscle building process. And so they're going to constantly be shortchanging their progress. Instead of just eating at a consistent level each day, you're going to start trying to, titrate how many carbs you're going to have this day versus another day. That's way too much mental energy that you're wasting on shit that doesn't matter. Just focus on the basics, consistency, consume enough calories, protein, train hard, and go with that. That's so much easier.
Some guys think if they add a little extra calories on squat day or deadlift day, that's somehow going to cause them to balloon up into fat-o man. It's not true, guys. I mean, look, right. People get obese by a persistent, consistent reliance on fast food, processed food, not monitoring their calories, eating a lot of junk, eating a lot of drinks with calories. Eating a couple hundred extra calories of rice a day or whatever is not going to make you obese. Correct. All right, what do we got here? Stan from Norway. I'm doing one-arm landmine press because I think that it's a safe approach to pressing overhead. Thoughts? Good exercise. I'm actually experimenting with them seated because it feels a little bit better for me. Robert, have you ever messed around with this movement?
Yeah, I like landmine press, and I know a lot of the guys that work with professional athletes, especially like baseball pitchers and stuff like that, since they don't want to do too much overhead work since they're already taxing a lot of their shoulders with overhead movements just in their nature of their job. It's a safer way because most people don't actually have the full range of motion and mobility to get their arm completely overhead without hyperextending their low back and going back like that. So it's a more versatile and an easier way to learn the vertical pressing pattern. I really like it. And it's the landmine, I think, is an underutilized tool in individuals' training.
Now, I'm going to say when you freaks go back to the gym, it can be hard at some gyms to do landmine presses. So I'm going to recommend an exercise you've probably never done. Go over to your hack squat machine, and you can use the pads as a press.
Yeah.
And you might need some help for somebody to unlock the lever. But I love that exercise as a backup shoulder press option. Robert, you ever messed around with that one?
No, I've actually never tried that. The gyms that Sandy and I have used they didn't have that kind of a hack squat setup. It was mostly leg. They had 2 different kinds of leg press, but they didn't have a hack squat setup like that. We did ghetto hack squats in a Smith machine where we'd put our feet way out in front of us and do them that way.
There are some home workout setups where you can set up 2 I don't know. I can't recall how it's done, but you can use 2 barbells in your squat rack to mimic kind of an overhead press or double landmine press. And you can do the same thing on a hack squat at your local gym if they have a good hack squat setup. Ben on Adventures, is creatine safe? It is a lot safer than getting married. Scientifically, it is safer than getting married. Yeah. Not that marriage is a bad thing, but creatine will never leave you. Creatine will never cheat on you. Okay. So just some things to think about.
It is cheap, and yeah, assuming you have no kidney issues, creatine is definitely safe. Steve,
right.
I wanted to rewind back, and I want to ask you a question. So
Sure.
earlier we were talking about you said the early days of lifting, and back then they didn't have as much access to microloading or 2.5 pound increments on dumbbells and weight plates and all that. They had solid pieces of weight, and you could only maybe jump up 20 or 40 pounds at a time. And so those people had to do a lot of reps and at a set weight and spend a ton of time on that before they could actually make that 20, 30 pound jump to the next fixed weight that they had. Do you think by us having more variety and more ease of adding weight to the bar, it's actually made it more difficult or more complicated for people than it needs to be?
I think so. I mean, I think if you walked into a gym and there's 2,000 options, like there's a Power Station gym here in Ohio. Robert, I don't believe you've ever been to it. But if you come up again next time, we'll have to go. The owner is a ex-Marine. He's in his 70s. He buys every freaky piece of gym equipment, unique piece of gym equipment. You walk in there and there's so many ways to train everything. And it's confusing. You're like, man, I got so many new options I never knew existed, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you just walked into a gym and there was one barbell and plates, you would have to master the basics. And I think yes. I mean, that is why I'm always focusing on the basics. These guys had to get creative. They didn't overthink things. At the end of the day, like strength is strength, right?
Right.
So these guys weren't sitting around going, I can't do 315 pounds on squats for 20 reps or 30 reps or 40 reps or 225 for 40 because that doesn't build strength, right? They weren't thinking like that. They were in a whole different mindset. So to your question, yeah, I mean, I think it is good to simplify and it is good to master that basic platform before you start getting into all the extra toys. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, it was perfect. And that's what I figured you were going to say. I just wanted to see if I was assuming, if my assumption was correct in your line of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the thought about like muscle endurance, like somehow on Instagram and Facebook, I have my daughter. And she's not really my daughter, but she is like a daughter to me. And her name on social media is Teriyaki.
Yep.
And ex-gymnast, she's literally doing like 135 pounds on squats for like 100 reps. And you think that doesn't build muscle? Her physique and her strength is better than most men. And she weighs like 104 pounds. And this girl never overthought this stuff. She's like a renaissance, a throwback. She just does the big lifts mainly, and she kills them for volume. And her physique, she's drug-free, looks better than any woman you will see. So think about it. All right. Bonk, thoughts on running and knee health in the long run. Tips, practice, shoes, etc. The biggest thing you can do with running is, and I tell people this over and over again, but few people listen, is let the speed and let the distance come to you. Go out, walk, run, go slow. Don't force a fast pace. Don't do anything crazy. Let the speed come to you. What happened with me is for 9 months, I let the speed come to me and I was slow. And one day I woke up and I was 30 minutes faster on my 10K time in a single day because my body, for some reason, was just clicking. So don't force speed. Don't force distance. Let it come to you. Go out maybe once a week on a Saturday. We have a Saturday run where we go out and we just try to do at least 10K. If we feel like 12K, we do it. If we feel like only 10K, we do it. If we feel like a half marathon, we do it. So listen to your body. Knee health. I think a lot of the hype over bad running and knee health is way overblown. Don't run too much. And you're talking to somebody that runs 10 hours a week. I'm insane. So don't be a big hairy ugly dude. Don't run too much unless you're training for a specific goal. Get your weight down. Get your weight down. I think it's every pound creates an additional 10 pounds of pressure on the joints. Don't quote me on that. And shoes, don't buy an expensive pair of shoes just because somebody said to get an expensive pair of shoes. There are no drop shoes. You don't want to get those. You want to get a shoe with a tight toe box, okay? And because when you're maneuvering, you don't want your foot sliding in your toe box. You want to not run on pavement. You don't want to not run on anything like that. You want to run on soft ground. It sounds like it would be the opposite, but you want to run in the woods if you can. It will treat your body much better. Trust me. When I go from the trail to pavement, I feel like crap in like 3 or 4K. So sorry for the long ramble, Robert. I know you're not a big fan of the run. So
no, I mean, you are the expert in that, and it's not my favorite form of physical activity, but that's why there's 31 flavors of ice cream. Everybody's got something different.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I enjoy better than to go out in the woods and just see how long I can go on a given day.
Yeah.
If I was retired, I'd probably crush my knees because I'd want to be out there 3 or 4 hours a day.
I like being out in the wilderness. I just don't like running out there. I'll walk it. I just don't run or jog it.
All right, Braden. Stan Efferding recommends eating a ton of sodium, saying that it's one of the biggest factors someone's energy and progress. I will say I eat a shit ton of sodium. I do. I put it on everything. I just do. But also I have like sweat. Like when I go out for a 15K run in the sun, I come out and there's literally sodium sweat marks on everything of my body, my water pack, my hat, etc. So that nonsense aside, Robert, what are your thoughts on sodium intake?
There was an article I wrote on Tiger Fitness. It's probably 2 years ago now. There was a new meta-analysis about sodium intakes, and it found that people with the highest sodium intakes actually had the lowest blood pressure. So we've always heard this thing that too much sodium increases blood pressure and all that. And there's certain instances, if you have kidney disease and certain things like that, you definitely need to monitor your sodium intake. But the belief that high sodium intakes are outright bad for you is kind of a misnomer. So I don't have an issue with that. We also need to consider who Stan Efferding is dealing with when he's recommending eating a ton of sodium. He's dealing with top-tier athletes that are doing a high volume of training with, he's working with professional strongman competitors, CrossFit athletes, people that are putting in a lot of sweat equity during the week. So they're going to need to replace that sodium in order to just even get back to a basic level of functioning and satisfy their enhanced nutrient needs from all the increased physical activity they're doing. So anytime you hear a recommendation, view it from the viewpoint of what that person is actually saying. Who are they working with? Who are they advising? What is their own personal daily activity and nutrition habits like? So I eat a lot of salt. I don't even question it. My dad is on a super low sodium diet because he's got kidney issues. He's been a type 2 diabetic for 20 plus years. So he doesn't put salt on any of his food. He just gets whatever's naturally in his food. And now his blood sugar numbers are coming down. His HbA1c is down. So for that case, he has to keep his sodium around like 1,200 a day or something, or 1,400 a day. I can't imagine eating food that doesn't have salt on it, which just, kind of brings home the point of take care of yourself in your younger days and you won't have to deal with some of these restrictions when you're older.
Now, Robert, maybe you can correct me, but I recall maybe about 10 years ago, there was some research where it wasn't so much the sodium intake that contributed to blood pressure. It was the lack of potassium intake. Yeah. Do you feel, is that still current? Is that still the current school of thought?
That goes part of it. And, a byproduct of that is where are all these high sodium intakes coming from? Hyper processed food. So when they make, cookies, chips, Doritos, all of this other crap, they load it up with a bunch of sodium, but there's not a lot of potassium in there. Now, this doesn't mean go start loading up on a bunch of potassium supplements, because that will screw up your heart really quickly if you consume too much potassium in the wrong way and you get that potassium sodium ratio out of whack. So don't go out and do that. This brings us back to focusing on whole foods, trying to limit amount of how much processed crap you're eating each week, which will just naturally keep your sodium levels within check.
So I'm going to say something here that I have found during my year of ultra running, and those that aren't paying attention, I've run 6 marathons, 350Ks, 100K, endless half marathons, and this is all on some of the hardest trails in the eastern United States. And electrolytes are a big thing when you're running for 12 hours or 10 hours or 8 hours. I've tried the electrolyte supplements during these runs, and I have to tell you, they invariably tend to make us sick. My wife vomits. I vomit because all of a sudden you have these a lot of electrolytes in your system, and we tend to get sick or nauseous. And other runners, a lot of other runners feel the same thing. When I only eat sodium or focus on sodium when I'm running, I feel so much better, and just have potassium from the foods that I eat. Or calcium, etc. So I
would be curious to see what forms of the electrolytes that are in there, because certain forms will lead to greater GI distress, like certain forms of magnesium. And if the magnesium dose is too high, that'll make you feel like you need to shit your pants really quickly. Or if they're using something like sodium citrate and potassium citrate, those have been shown to have less GI distress than other sodium and potassium forms in those electrolyte solutions. So that's something to consider for the future.
Yeah, I'd love to dig into it just with you, Robert, because stomach issues during long distance running are a major issue to begin with, because all the blood is in your muscles and it's not really, you're not really digesting. So I imagine adding something that's stressful on the digestive system is a recipe for disaster. All right, let's see what we got here. Shashank Kumar. I probably pronounced that incorrectly. Hello from India. Great work, guys. Thanks for tuning in. What's your take on maximum number of whole eggs we should be eating? Is it safe to eat 10 eggs a day? Yeah, I would say it's safe. Robert, any thoughts on that?
Most eggs I've eaten in a day is 8, I think. I mean, I like eggs. The myth on or belief that the cholesterol in eggs is going to be bad for you has pretty much been debunked. They've done enough studies showing that 3-6 eggs per day every day is fine. It doesn't, dietary cholesterol doesn't have that much of an impact on serum cholesterol levels within the body, assuming that you're an otherwise healthy individual.
I usually eat 2 eggs in the morning. Our daily routine is 2 eggs cooked in butter, some mushrooms, maybe some tomatoes, a piece of quinoa bread. We got a ritual. So I eat like 2 eggs in the morning. A lot of times in the evening, I'll eat 8 eggs with my black and white rice. So, maybe a couple times a week, I'm eating 10 eggs a day.
Yeah, they're cheap. They're delicious. You can make them, umpteen different ways. There was something I was going to ask you about. What kind of mushrooms do you like, Steve? Do you care? White button, shiitake, portobellos, or you just kind of go any kind of mushrooms?
We kind of mix it up a little bit. The white button are usually on sale. Portobellos, whatever. I'm not picky. I would say I'm really obsessed with food variety. Mm-hmm. So whenever I go to the grocery store, I'm always trying to get something different.
Yeah.
Let's see. My client Thaddeus says he'll be changing his tag next week. Please don't. I just want you to get a professional wrestler avatar that matches your name. High bar versus low bar. Which is safer on the joints in the long run? Neither. Low bar, when I'm coaching somebody on the squat from the ground up, there's no right or wrong way. You have to kind of adjust the squat to their body. That could mean their weight. That could mean their limb lengths. So low bar squats done incorrectly tend to put more stress on the lower back, because a lot of people will do low bar squats that aren't necessarily the best individuals to be low bar squatting, and they fold like a folding chair. Robert, any thoughts?
I would also, I would echo your sentiment saying that you should match the movement to the individual's, anatomy and anthropometry with that. So fit the exercise to the individual. If we're looking at it in a more of a grand scale, by and large, most individuals be able to move more weight using a low bar squat comparatively to a high bar squat if we're just looking at like, general population in general. So from just the sheer magnitude of loadings that the two exercises you can do, the low bar squat, I guess, would eventually put more wear and tear on the body just on a grand scale, since you can ultimately use more weight due to the leverages in the position of the body. But if your movement pattern is proper and you're using good mechanics and everything, they should both be safe on the joints.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Bonk says, I start to feel pain in my forearm flexor muscle, maybe slight pain around the wrist. Are they simply tired and need more rest? There's no way to tell. One thing I will say is pains and aches and feeling beat up and strains are part of progressive overload. Part of getting from point A to point B is learning to manage the small changes in your body. You're going to get beat up a little bit because you're not just strengthening your muscles, you're strengthening your joints and your tendons and all that kind of good stuff. So the pain, if it's sharp pain, that's an issue. If it's like a dull pain, that could be connective tissue. But the only thing you can do is listen to your body when you're warming up. If the pain is there, do not push it. All right, Slim. I love how Robert slings the sarcasm and sounds so serious.
Believe it or not, that has gotten me in trouble sometimes in life. We were sitting down to dinner with Sandy and a bunch of her coworkers from school, or coworkers from teaching one day. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago when we were still living in Louisiana. And as I mentioned earlier, Sandy and I have been together for a very long time, so I know what happens as a result of her actions sometimes. And when she eats too much, she says she gets a bellyache, and then she spends the rest of the day griping. So we were all sitting down. There was something like 10 or 15 of us, and it's me, maybe 2 other guys, and 8 or 9 other women. Sandy gets this huge plate of food and then starts eating like the leftovers on my plate and one of her friends' plates. I said, Sandy, is that a good idea? You sure? You know what happens when you eat too much? And I'm serious. Every woman got this death stare and just looked at me at the table as if I was telling her she was going to get fat and she was going to be in trouble for getting too fat. And Sandy had to tell everybody. So Sandy knew I was joking. Everybody else at the table thought I was, bashing my wife for getting fat and eating too much. And she had to tell them all, he's just joking. When I eat too much, I get a stomachache and then I spend the rest of the day complaining. So he's just doing something for my own good. So yeah, if people don't know me, and I'm typically sarcastic by nature. So it takes people a while to understand that. And so I'm probably, rubbed some people the wrong way with my sarcasm inadvertently. But if you get that pissed off by it, then, you can't understand sarcasm. Well, then, you're dumb. There's not an easy way to say it.
Yeah. Well, sarcasm is an essential in humor. And, people that tend to laugh more or find humor in things, appreciate the contrast, and it's actually been linked to intelligence. So right. If you don't understand the nuance of sarcasm, you're probably dumb.
Yeah. I blame my parents. My parents were very sarcastic, and everybody in my family pretty much is. So I kind of just grew up into it. That's the way I've always been.
Yeah, if sarcasm offends you, you're probably a dimwit, and I'm sorry, but that's science. That's
statistically proven.
Statistically proven, you're a dimwit. All right, Braden, Stan Efforting recommends. Oh, we got that already.
Yeah, we tackled that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they double post like that sometimes. Brian, PEDs after 40. We do not discuss PEDs here. This is a lifting and fitness channel. TRT for men over 40 is certainly something to consider. I recommend a lot of men over the age of 40 at least get a check to know where they're at. With that said, you got to clean up your diet. I don't want anybody trying to take a test booster or even consider TRT if they're eating like crap. So clean up your diet. If not, you're not worthy to even, it's like somebody that's trying to get a weight loss surgery that hasn't tried to change their eating lifestyle. You need to change the things that are broken. All right. Awakened Vacuity. Massive Iron, Massive 6, both excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. You guys can find that over at my website, superlivingtoday.com. Is it healthy to go on TRT? excuse me, for overall well-being. Robert, any thoughts on that? I'll throw you in the fire.
Yeah, I know you are. I mean, there's research showing that low testosterone is associated or is, linked to lethargy, sluggishness, depression, low libido, loss of muscle, increased fat gain. Low test, if you're actually clinically low in testosterone, it is not good. It's an essential hormone that men need to thrive. And even women to a certain degree, although their amount of testosterone is, substantially less. But it's an essential sex hormone for a reason. You do need it. So it certainly can, if you are clinically deficient in it, going on a TRT under the doctor's, recommendation and supervision, could probably improve, overall quality of life, energy levels, performance, all of those things.
Yeah. So TRT, the thing is, like, if you're going to go on TRT, once you get off TRT, you won't notice much of a difference when you transition onto it. But then when you transition off, you will notice some differences. From folks that I've spoken to, when they got off TRT, they noticed they felt it mostly in the morning, like when they woke up, they felt more like a zombie. We kind of get accustomed to that, and I think that's a big thing to think about, is that if you go off TRT, you're going to kind of have those old feelings coming back.
Yeah.
Bonk. When progress slows on the bench, should we simply be patient? Yes. It's math. Okay. When we start out and we go from 95 by 5, I'll use myself as an example. 95 by 5 to 275 by 5 in 18 months. Okay. Whether that's fast or slow progress or whatever, doesn't matter. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. So once I get to 275 by 5, each rep after that adds like 10 pounds or whatever to my 1 rep max. So that's not slow progress. That's a difference in math. And that's what we need to understand. Mathematically, adding 1 rep every 6 weeks on the bench press is probably going to build 50 pounds to your bench press over the course of a year. That's not slow progress. We simply need to understand math. Robert, any thoughts?
I would say, going over to his second question on thoughts on switching to close variation with progress stalls, I would hopefully assume that you're incorporating a couple of variations of, pressing patterns, and you're not just doing your bench press as your sole horizontal pressing exercise each week. Hopefully you've already also got some incline in there and maybe some close grip work too, to kind of help, emphasize more of the triceps, which would help with lockout in the bench press. So hopefully you already have, maybe 2 to 3 variations of pressing patterns in your workouts already, and just get stronger on those. And then it'll eventually translate to, improvements on your, the flat bench.
My sexy bench press improvement program involves getting your dumbbell rows and barbell rows as strong as humanly possible. Doing 2 overhead press variations a week, a dumbbell and a barbell, and doing those for at least 8 reps per set. Doing triceps, and more triceps. Doing a minimal but reasonable degree of biceps, and having a lot of dumbbell variations. One thing we don't talk about in lifting when it comes to bench is chest. So there are some exercise variations that are better on the chest or better for chest strength. So we have to kind of find some variations and maybe focus on that as well. Pressing variations, I've always done pressing variations, barbell, dumbbell, sometimes guillotine press, spoto press, whatever. So variations are good for the bench as well. All right, we're rolling. Robert, you doing good on time?
Oh yeah, man. I'm all yours.
All right, we got DL. Go vegan for your health and for the animals. I absolutely appreciate anybody that goes vegan for the animals. As far as health, all I'll say is if it works for you, go for it. I'm just glad anybody in this world doesn't rely on fast food and processed food. And if you go vegan, don't rely on the processed vegan food, because in my opinion, it's just as sketchy as eating processed regular diet. Drog. I love vegans. They leave the meat alone. I can eat. I agree. T-Sizzle, there we go. This is unique. Better than Unique Love. There he is. Now, I want everybody watching this right now. T-Sizzle is Thaddeus, my client. He lost a lot of weight, but he's been in a rut the last 4 months. So I'm going to publicly shame him to have no alcohol on the weekends until he gets shredded, because he's almost there. All right. DL, I love animals, so I leave them alone. I love animals as well. Well, some parts. Okay. Axel, how important is frequency in muscle building? I try hit every muscle group twice a week. Robert, thoughts?
I mean, I would say at a bare minimum, make sure you're hitting it once a week. Ideally, according to the latest evidence-based recommendations, twice a week seems to be that sweet spot. But you got to think about, how are you hitting a muscle? So if you're doing a typical bro split, you're doing, a chest day, and then you've got a shoulder day, and you've got a back day and all that. You're going to be hitting parts of your chest and triceps on your shoulder day with anytime you're doing any kind of pressing pattern. So any vertical, horizontal, anything like that, you're going to be recruiting all of those pushing muscle when you do it. I like to train body parts twice a week, unless, you're horrifically sore. It just allows you to get more volume or more higher quality volume in throughout the week. But is it, over the course of 30 years of lifting, is somebody that's training a muscle group twice a week going to be that much better than somebody that just trained their balls off, once a week doing it? No.
Yeah, I mean, it's like driving through North Dakota. I mean, anybody that's ever driven through North Dakota, it's a straight path. You can put a stick on your wheel and fall asleep. But you can ride a tricycle across North Dakota, or you can ride or you can drive a Lamborghini. It doesn't really matter, because in the matter of a few months, you're both going to be at the end destination. It's a silly analogy, I know, but really the key, and this is something I preach a lot, and yes, there is science to back frequency, and yes, for most of my clients, I have them doing everything twice a week, just for reference. But the true people that are successful in lifting, it's right here. They live it, they breathe it. It's part of their blood. It's part of their soul. So don't underestimate that.
Yeah, you've got to be careful. If you're going to go start increasing frequency, then you need to be mindful of the volume and intensity that you're training with each of those sessions to make sure you can sufficiently recover from one to the other. Otherwise, if you're trying to do, 15 sets for chest and back on Monday and doing it again on Wednesday and then doing it again on Friday, you're going to run yourself into the ground and start to get overuse injuries. So you're going to have to be careful with that. The benefits of frequency, you get to ingrain movement patterns better, so you get more muscle memory built in there, which is a good thing, just from a neurological standpoint of understanding how the movement patterns are supposed to be done. And you can get you get higher quality volume by taking that same amount of volume and dividing it across 2 sessions. So instead of doing 10 sets for chest all on Monday, you could do 5 Monday and then 5 on Thursday. So you get a higher quality of volume on each of those 2 days. But it ultimately depends what's best for your schedule and what allows you to train the hardest and with the greatest amount of effort and consistency. So,
yeah, I mean, back when full body workouts, back when the frequency thing started to really hit and the tide started to turn, people jump ship in the full body workouts, and they are tough. It is tough to do all the exercises in a given day, have good exercise balance, too many compounds on a given day, and quite frankly, I'm not a fan for most people. The stronger you get, the more tedious they become. That's why upper lowers make a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, you need to go look in the mirror and say, am I a raving fucking lunatic? And if you are, then you're going to be successful no matter what you do in the gym.
Yep.
Bad news. Can anyone suggest a pair of sparkly tights that help with calorie deficit? I would say there is some scientific validity to what I'm about to say. But if you wear a sexy enough pair of sparkly tights, you're going to feel energized. Your mood is going to be better. People around you are going to treat you differently, and that's going to help you with anxiety, depression, overall mood. And it might even help with your sexual activity. So I would take sparkly tights very, very seriously. Robert, any thoughts on sparkly tights?
I only wear them on days that end in Y.
And if you want pictures of Robert in sparkly tights, his PayPal is. All right, moving on.
There we go.
Robert has those brain gains. No need to hyper focus on arms.
Exactly. My brain's sucking up all the gains. It makes my biceps suffer for it.
All right, Reed B. Thoughts on Pregnenolone supplementation for people on and not on TRT. Robert, I have no fucking idea what that is.
It's a steroid precursor in the body that is available in dietary supplements. It's kind of in the family of DHEA, where it might serve benefit for people for guys that are older, like 40, 50 plus. Younger guys shouldn't be bothering with it. There are some human studies showing it can improve deep sleep, might also improve, memory and mood. Do I look at it as like a muscle building supplement? No, I wouldn't put it like that. It's going to be something that's more hormonal, health related, but it's something you don't really even need to consider till you'd be considering TRT. So it's kind of at that age bracket.
All right, Pierre Bullfit says, I'm pushing 42 and continuing to get bigger and stronger and sexier as well, I might add. T Sizzle says, Bullfit, it's because of your Thor hair. I thought
those Samson locks, man. Don't ever cut your hair, Kevin, or you'll lose your power like Samson.
Hair, but whatever. Greetings from Vancouver, Canada. Hope all is well, Paul. Devlin, any suggestion for over 50 knee and hip soreness? Robert, any thoughts on that? Let me just lead with weight. Wherever your weight is, you need to look at your weight and reduce the burden that's placed on your joint. So even if you're like 210, 220, you're looking sexy, it might be a good idea to drop 10, 20 pounds to reduce some of the stress in your joints. Robert, any thoughts?
I would guess, where is the hip pain? I mean, is it your outer lateral hip? Is it on the inside to where you might have, some kind of like FAI, femoral acetabular impingement or something, or, a torn labrum in your hip like I have? That could be leading some hip discomfort. Always go check with, an osteopath first.
One thing I'll add is usually in running, they will mention, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that all things generally come from the hips. So if you're experiencing knee and hip soreness, there is a good chance that it might be, and I'm not a doctor, I just look like one, it might be something hip related. So go see your doctor. That's your best plan of attack. And if you're not lifting with and strengthening your hips, you probably need to take that seriously. Hip hinges, get your hamstrings strong, get your glutes strong, get everything in that area strong and balanced.
Yeah.
T Sizzle, formerly Dude Love or whatever he was. Is my picture there now? Nope. Yes, it is. Thank you. Pierre Bullfit says that creatine is safer than marriage, especially if it's Carol Baskins. Okay. And Slim, hitting yourself in the head with a hammer is safer than getting married. Yes, because you can control the degree of pain, where in marriage you can't. Sorry.
It's true.
Well,
the caveat is that if you choose poorly with your selection for marriage, it's worse. If you choose wisely, you don't have these issues.
Yeah, the thing is, like, a lot of people have two marriages: their first marriage and then the right marriage. So
that doesn't sound good for me, though.
No,
it doesn't bode well for me.
Usually, the one where you have children, and then it's with the wrong person. So the only thing is, like, sometimes it's better to wait in life and know thyself before you get deeply invested. Like sometimes, like, hey, he's got a really cool car and he's a great kisser and he likes Aerosmith, and these are all, like, that's not a lasting relationship. Those are not. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from marriage class. Unless you're David Bowie, you should not be wearing sparkly tights. We'll have to agree to disagree on that. I'm a child of the 80s, and when it comes to wrestling, some of the biggest, beefiest men on the planet wore tights. So
they do.
Vacuity, don't be afraid of changes. All right. James Leach, don't treat running like a set in weightlifting. Right. You're not going all out. You're just trying to make it from point A to point B as safely as you can for your body. Modern Stoic, does coffee really inhibit protein absorption?
Not to any meaningful degree, no. If that was the case, then everybody would be walking around atrophied and dying of cachexia and all the other kind of muscle wasting diseases out there. No.
Yeah, if that was the case, the whole pre-workout category would be dead.
Yeah, and all those cops eating donuts and eggs with their breakfast wouldn't look as beefy as they do.
Herman, it's definitely less expensive. Hitting yourself with a hammer is definitely less expensive than getting married. Sebastian, if gains seem to stop, should I change rep range or change sets? All right, I'm gonna talk about that for a second, and I'll let Robert jump in. We need to be monitoring things on a monthly basis. Tape your arm size flex, your leg size flexed, and your waist at the belly button relaxed, so we can kind of have a minimum chart or set of data points, okay? You also need to be checking your weight, and you also need to be monitoring your lift totals. And over time, you also need to apply that or look at that next to what is normal and reasonable progress. Gains seem to stop for a lot of people because they don't understand the gains curve. And when I dive into what they are looking at, it's generally they're just frustrated because gains are slowing rather than gains have stopped. The first thing you need to look at if you're not making the progress you want is what are your strength levels? Because the average amount of strength, say you're doing 65 on dumbbell bench for 10, that's good. But the men that are big naturally, like guys like me and Alan Roberts and all the other guys like that, they're generally throwing around 100-pounders on dumbbell bench like it was nothing. So generally that intermediate strength and that near advanced strength levels, if you're frustrated with size, usually you got to look at where your strength is. Robert, any thoughts?
Also check calorie intake. I mean, if you're not gaining weight and you're trying to put on size, you got to make sure that the number on the scale is actually moving up, and that goes hand in hand with knowing how many calories you're eating and are you consistently eating calories. And if you're stuck at a plateau, maybe you need to bump up your calories, 200-300 more to make sure you get the needle going in the right direction.
Yep, consistent food intake. Neil, a friend of mine runs marathons, and she always gets super sick around mile 21. My wife is like that as well. We were in Cacapon, West Virginia last year, and she was trying to get 50K on a brutal course. And she got to like mile 20, and I caught up to her because they're 5-mile laps, and she was vomiting. She vomited like 20 times. It was a really hot day. And she went and rested, cooled down her body for an hour, went out and finished another 9K. So, or another 20K, excuse me. Celery for sodium. There, I'm a fan of a lot of fruits and vegetables, but celery I would rather stick in my ear than eat. So
I think DL here, if you start looking down, he's getting a little wackadoodle with the vegan propaganda or the promotion of it.
Yeah, I would just use sodium for sodium. Asim, how to switch from calorie deficit to maintenance or surplus. Robert, any thoughts on that?
How aggressive is your deficit? I mean, if it's only 300 to 500 calories, just starting back at maintenance. Just slowly increase your calorie intake back up till you get to maintenance. You can do it at 200 calories at a time, or just make the drop or make the jump. Assuming if it's not like a 1,500 calorie deficit or something, just go back eating to maintenance and spend a couple of weeks at maintenance, and then slowly go into a surplus.
Yeah, I mean, when I am working with somebody that has been on an extended calorie deficit, my main concern is that they're transitioning and adding more food in a healthy way that is good for their lifestyle. It's a sustainable lifestyle. So we tend to move it up slowly over the course of 4 to 6 weeks. That's not because of any reverse dieting thing. I just want to make sure they're not adding 500-600 calories to their daily intake and it's back to the old habits again. There's really no right or wrong way, as long as you are monitoring your weight and you're eating pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
We're about to get into some serious vegan stuff here, Robert. So just hold on, fasten your seatbelts, because I got the questions in the queue, and it's going to really get you fired up. Neo says sardines are the new eggs. I've never actually looked at the nutrition of sardines, but I imagine they're pretty solid.
Good for omega-3s.
Let's see. D. Nikos is trying to give someone advice on rotating exercises as a method of fighting a stall. That's generic bad advice. This is a type of advice one lifter gives another lifter on the internet. I'm sorry to offend you, but it's the truth. This is bullshit advice. It's generic advice. You have to comb through all the essentials, all that's going on with someone's information. Like if someone posts on the internet, I'm stalling, and somebody says rotate exercises or wear pink underwear, it's all bullshit, because any coach that coaches people knows what you need to look for, knows what you need to comb through. And I'm sorry, D. Nikos, but that is generic advice, and it's absolutely useless. All right, Robert, ready?
Yep.
Here comes the vegan question. Typical bro science. Eggs have cholesterol and are bad for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's why my arteries are clogged and I'm about to have a heart attack.
Yeah. Eggs clogged. Seriously, though, the idea that eating cholesterol gives you high cholesterol, you really need to leave 1976. I mean, that is sarcasm, yes, but it is true. You really need, look, being vegan is great. If you want to be vegan and live your lifestyle, but for fuck's sake, I mean, at least know real science from fake science. Don't sprout the typical bullshit. I mean, this is nonsense. It doesn't help anybody. You're just sitting in your little camp spouting science from 43 years ago that doesn't help anybody. Robert, any thoughts?
Said it pretty well. He's obviously ignoring the latest metadata that shows that eggs are completely fine and have no adverse impact on cardiovascular parameters. That's fine. You know, you can ignore what the actual research is saying if you want to be a vegan.
I mean, the real issue is people eating shit food. And
yeah,
vegan or non-vegan, we all need to rally together and get our collective heads out of our ass and look what's around us. The obesity epidemic. You know, eating a calf's liver is or an egg. That's not the enemy. If you want to have if you don't want to eat animal products, I completely respect that. I do. I completely respect that. But we also have to be scientific and reasonable, and all this bullshit stuff that the fringe side of vegans pull out. And look, non-vegans do the same thing. And it's not a vegan issue. It's not a non-vegan issue. It's just bad science. All right, moving on.
I mean, they're the extremes on the vegan side. I mean, there's wackadoodles on the carnivore side too. They think that plants are going to, rot your intestines out and make you shit your brain through your asshole. I mean, it's all foods can be good for you in the right doses and prepared the right way. You don't need to exclude anything. All that does is create unnecessary mental strain and wear and tear and anxiety for people.
Yeah, I have no issue with vegans. In fact, when we let off this live video, I talked about my friend David Clarke, who passed away. He is a vegan. I have no issues with vegans. I have really no issue with any diet that consists of real food choices, good for healthy food choices. It's bad science that pisses me off.
Yeah, don't treat food like a religion.
Right. All right. Thoughts on if it fits your macros, Robert?
I mean, it's a common sense way to eat. Assuming that you're not going off the deep end with if it fits your macros and saying, oh, well, I can eat, 4 pounds of ice cream a day. It fits my macros. I can do that. I'm still going to lose weight. Yeah, you're still going to lose weight. We all understand that. We understand basic thermodynamics. That's fine. You can use it to fit in, some junk food or, meaningless empty calories throughout the day. That's fine. Just be reasonable with it. So the bulk of your, if it fits your macros diet should consist of whole, minimally processed foods that are rich in essential vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, polyphenols, flavonoids, all of that good stuff. So yeah, you can have, 10% of your diet can be junk if you want to. But, just be smart, eat a well-rounded, nutritious diet, and you won't have anything to worry about.
The thing I would say is, if it fits your macros is a stupid concept, and let me explain, and I'm going to trigger somebody, because that's called balanced, normal, healthy eating.
Yep.
If you're an extremist and you're eating crap all day long in the name of it fits your macros, you're mentally ill, right? You're not healthy.
Yeah.
But no, if it fits your macros, people are really doing that, right?
Correct.
If they are, they need a frozen boot to the head. So with that understood, that if it fits your macros is basically balanced, healthy eating, where 10 to 20% of our calories might be whatever, as long as our overall calorie intake is reasonable and our macros are reasonable. That's normal eating. So it kind of makes creating a term for it, like if it fits your macros, a little bit redundant. So
yeah.
All right. Eat beans and lentils for protein. Sounds like good protein choices to me. Any supplement suggestions for knee and hip pain for an over 50 trainee? Robert?
First, check with your doctor to make sure there's no structural damage or, any other kind of connective tissue issues that are going on with. Outside of that, for just normal joint support, look at things like collagen. Collagen supplements can be good for joint issues. You can also look at the formula that I always recommend to Steve, and I've said the past couple of weeks on here. Joint Support XT by SNS is a really good one. Genoflex by PES is another really good one. Both of those are really good joint support supplements. Go for both of those. Outside of that, ingredients, you can look at some anti-inflammatory stuff like curcumin or a turmeric. Could be good. Glucosamine and chondroitin and MSM are all three that are kind of always in your joint complex. At this point, I wouldn't look at single ingredient ones, because the glucosamine and chondroitin by itself, you can get those already complex with some of the other joint ingredients, like Boswellia serrata, for the same price as you would get a standalone glucosamine supplement. So look for one of those two that I just mentioned, the Joint Support XT or the Genoflex. Either one of those is good.
Robert, I have a question for you, a general supplement question.
Yeah.
When it comes to like a sleep supplement or a joint supplement or a testosterone supplement, would you agree or disagree, or is it far more complex than this, that it would be better looking at a supplement with multiple ingredients rather than a single ingredient supplement? Sleep, testosterone, joint, etc.
I think by and large for those kind of categories, yeah. If we're getting into maybe like the pre-workout landscape or the nootropics market, especially with nootropics, I'm much more in favor of going with a single ingredient approach until you understand how your body reacts to those things. But for stuff like the joint support stuff, the test boosters, the adaptogen things, I think you can just go for the all-in-one kind of thing, because most of those, at least the quality ones that I recommend, are formulated to kind of attack all the different pathways that you would want to address with a joint support supplement. So as you're limiting COX to your, dealing with some other of the anti-inflammatory pathways in the body, you're stimulating some collagen synthesis in there to kind of support all the things that are going into joint health and integrity.
Thanks, Robert. Back to the vegan diatribe. Your body makes all the cholesterol it needs. Any extra is on the road for heart disease and the number one killer. I would maybe step back and really educate yourself on what the causes of heart disease are. If you haven't been outside of your building in a while, maybe go see what everybody is eating. Processed food, fast food, reliance on sugar, flour, etc. Robert, heart disease. What are your thoughts on the primary mechanisms that drive heart disease for the general populace?
I thought the way society's been acting, I thought COVID was the number one killer. I didn't think it was heart disease.
No, COVID is the number one killer. Heart disease
apparently so.
Number two.
Oh fuck.
Do we really need to go through this? I mean, this is a waste of time. Next.
Yeah.
Pair. I'm late. Who's the guy? The guy is Robert Shinetsky, the supplement engineer. And I do not say this lightly. Robert is one of the most educated people in the industry when it comes to supplementation and the science of supplementation. So if you want to know the real deal, you can follow his podcast, The Supplement Engineer, follow his YouTube channel, The Supplement Engineer, follow him on Instagram, The Supplement Engineer. Over on my website, superlivingtoday.com, I also have a supplement assessment service. If you want to save money, and if you want a supplement plan that is perfect for your specific needs, that is Robert. Robert, anything that I failed to mention about your sexy self?
No, that's about it. Or if you need a math tutor, I've been known to do that before too, because my degree's in mechanical engineering, and I did that for several years before jumping into the diet, fitness, and supplementation industry.
Yeah, if you need a math tutor, I'm there to help you as well. If you need an editor, I'm there as well. On the internet, I'm just a meathead, but in real life, I have normal skills and aptitudes. All right, so let's see. Gulf fam, hi from India. Glad you're tuning in. Not sure what time it is in India. I've had several clients in India, but I've completely lost track of what time it is in India right now. Thoughts on if it fits your macros for weight maintenance over 40. Here's where I'll start. I don't want you to think about if it fits your macros. What I want you to think about is, for weight maintenance, what are your bad habits? Do you have any bad habits? How can you improve your bad habits? So go through and list your bad habits. Think about active ways, decisions you can make to improve your bad habits. And then once you have fixed any bad habits that might be causing weight maintenance issues, like you're binge eating, or you're not planning on you're planning your food on weekends and you're relying on fast food, then once you got all that crap removed from your plate, so to speak, then returning balance in 10 to 20% of your daily food intake from spotty choices is perfectly fine. Robert?
Yep, I agree. Nope, nothing else to add there.
The only thing I'll add is, the older you get, the more you realize the impact of a bad food choice, what it does to your gut, what it does to how you sleep, how you feel the next day. So as long as you're handling it okay, thumbs up. Stefano from Hawaii, you guys are starting early. Yeah, sorry about that, man. We this time is kind of good for America and Europe because we can kind of get the Europeans before they go to sleep. So MD Guitar, would you guys recommend creatine for muscle gains? I assume it's creatine.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's just a typo. I would recommend creatine for just about everything. It's a wonderful supplement that enhances cognitive function as well, recovery, performance, lean mass gains. There's seemingly nothing in the world of fitness that creatine doesn't benefit. It's safe, it's effective, it's cheap. Go for it. Yeah.
Now, we're going to get around to everybody's questions, so hang tough. Robert, earlier in the week, I believe you sent me an email about something you wanted to touch on this week. Mm-hmm. Did you not?
Oh, it was something on time-restricted feeding. Cash uploaded the meta-analysis because he's been kind of doing a deep dive into it. We can come back to that at the end if there's time.
Maybe me and you can just do a little 10-minute video on it for the channel.
Yeah.
And MD Guitar says, any other supplements that are worth it?
It would depend on how long you've been training, how consistent are you with your nutrition, your sleep habits, and all of that stuff. It's kind of a too open-ended of a question right now. I don't recommend supplements for people within like the first 6 to 12 months of training, because at that point, you're still trying to get your bearings straight of what it takes to actually be successful and establish consistent lifestyle habits. So we need a little bit more information.
Yeah, you guys, you can head over to my website, superlivingtoday.com, and Robert will do a supplement assessment for you if you want him to dive into specifics. And really, that's the best way to do an analysis. NadPad says, and to Robert, thank you. Appreciate it. Gaceris, that's my best guess. I think I have neuroma on my feet. Would it be advisable to go barefoot? Is that a form of neuropathy? Robert, I'm not familiar with that. Are you?
Pinched nerve, possibly, or a benign growth of nerve tissue. I had to go look up what that was. It says It's a painful condition also referred to as a pinched nerve or a nerve tumor. Benign growth of nerve tissue frequently found between the third and fourth toes. It brings on pain, burning sensation, tingling, or numbness between the toes and the ball of the foot.
So
I would go see a podiatrist.
Yeah, it sounds similar to neuropathy. That's out of our lane. So, we have nothing to add intelligently to that discussion.
Yeah, podiatrist or an orthopedist. Definitely.
Shashank, thoughts on glucosamine sulfate as a joint supplement?
Yeah, referencing back what I said earlier, it's good. I mean, it's been shown to support joint health integrity. I wouldn't just get it by itself. I would look for it in a otherwise well-formulated joint support formula.
All right, Neo. Thanks, Robert. If people are easily moving 100-pound dumbbells, 65 doesn't sound intermediate. 65 sounds beginner. Nah, 65 is not beginner. I mean,
all relative.
Yeah, it's all relative, but these are just arbitrary numbers. But the point I was trying to make is, if you're moving 65, the guys that are really big are generally manhandling the 100s. That's all I'm saying. So regardless of the numbers, you probably need to get a lot stronger than you are now. That's a primary mechanism if you want to attack hypertrophy. Montes, is it recommended switching around bodybuilding type training and powerlifting, or is it just gym hearsay? Look, it's really no different. You have to build a base. The base needs to come the first several years of training, and the base is going to be the same. That's why I call what I do power building. Your base is the same. Once the base is established and you have 16-inch arms, you have a good amount of size, a good amount of strength, then look, if you're a beginner or an early intermediate, don't think about weaknesses. Everything is a weakness, okay? You need to get everything a lot stronger. You can't say your hamstrings are weak if you're squatting 225. Get everything stronger, and then at some point you'll have a better frame of reference for weaknesses. So powerlifting in the off season, the powerlifters that come to me, they train completely bodybuilding, power building in the off season. Then when they switch to an 8 to 12 week peak for their meet, then it's more of a powerlifting mode. So, Rob, do you have anything to add to this?
I guess it also depends on what your goals. Are you training just purely to improve body composition and overall health and wellness? Then there's not really a need to alternate between the two different styles. If that's all, if you're trying to be a competitive bodybuilder, powerlifter, then it might warrant switching things up and training those different modalities. But for just the general health population, just work in some different rep ranges each week. So rotate through different rep ranges through your weekly workouts is what I was trying to say. So include some, 5 to 8 work, include some 10 to 12 work, some 15 to 20 work, and maybe even, 20 to 30 rep work to get some of the metabolite training too. Work in a variety of rep ranges throughout the week, and you'll get the benefits of both, or all that it has to offer.
And a great avatar, by the way, Mantis.
Yep.
I would say a lot of people equate powerlifting training to low rep training. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do low rep training. Low rep training is for the non-advanced lifter. Keep low rep training to a peaking program. For the near advanced lifter, low rep training is certainly viable, and it can help with strength gains, but it has to be done properly. If you're a near advanced lifter, you just need to kind of start researching that end of the gene pool before you start doing low rep sets. Robert, I got the Glaxon sleep supplement. You recommended it. It was great.
Yeah, Glaxon sedative is an awesome sleep aid. I really like it. I'm glad you were enjoying it too, Dexter. Good job.
T Sizzle has the greatest contribution to the chat today with a dash.
Yep.
Awakening to vacuity. If you're doing the work, you're not stalling, although it feels like that way sometimes. Absolutely correct. Generally, most people are not stalling. If you want me to assess to see if you're stalling, I'd be glad to help you out. Jeremy O. I lift at my work's gym over lunch, so post-workout drink is best. Or is that pre or post-workout? Is cluster dextrin better than, I assume it's post-workout, cluster dextrin better than a regular glucose dextrose supplement for a post-workout shake, or worth the premium cost?
No. I mean, if you are an advanced bodybuilder or a CrossFit athlete that's training 2 or 3 times a day, maybe there would be a marginal slight benefit to cluster dextrin, but just for, the average person going to the gym, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. You could just mix some Gatorade powder in with your thing. It'll be infinitely cheaper and, probably better tasting.
Thanks, Robert. William Elliott. If you're snapped up, should you decrease weight and focus on form, or just stop until your body feels better? All right. Snapped up usually implies one muscle group or one lift is being compromised.
Yeah.
I just recommended to a trainee today that is snapped up on the bench press, having some kind of a sternum issue. He said, what should I do? I said, go into the gym and just do your warm-ups as normal. If anything feels off, shut it down. If you're feeling good for your first working set, go normal. If during the 3rd or 4th rep something feels wrong, shut it down. And if you get 2 workouts in a row where you need to shut it down, you probably need to avoid that exercise for probably at least a month and then creep back into it. Any additional thoughts, Robert?
Nope. That's pretty covered everything, Steve.
All right, thanks. James Leach. That it doesn't matter. I've lost the context of that, James, so I apologize. Tom, big hairy ugly dude, thoughts on ramping up on chest day or pyramid, counting all sets or working sets for progress for the sake of volume? I really believe in most cases you should start with your heaviest work. Now, if you're not somebody that's doing super heavy work, meaning like for me, I would go in and I would work up to a max rep set of 365 or 405 or whatever. And then I would go back down and then do like max rep sets. So I would do 365 for max rep, 315 for max rep, 275 for max rep, 225 for max rep. Now, if you're not that guy and you want to do volume work, you could do things like pre-exhaust, post-exhaust, stuff like that, as long as you're paying really good attention to your chest. So I'm not sure if that is helpful. The only thing I really count is working sets, because your warm-up sets should not be fatiguing or a lot of volume. Your warm-up sets exist to feel out how everything is going for the day. Okay, do I feel 100% good? I'm going to give it. To get some blood into the muscle, to bring the body temperature up a little bit, to prime your central nervous system. So you really shouldn't be getting a lot of volume on your warm-up sets. Any thoughts, Robert?
Nope, that pretty much answered it again, Steve. It's no, you're making my job easy.
All right, now I'll make your job easy. CLA, fact or fiction?
It is a fact that it is a supplement. It is a fact that it is a very overhyped supplement. It is fiction that it will magically make you lose a ton of weight. If you want to read, I think it's been massively overblown, and it's also potentially hazardous. If you want to read the whole thing, I've got an article on the Advanced Molecular Labs website. It's called The Dark Side of CLA, so you could either just type in Dark Side of CLA, Advanced Molecular Labs, or Dark Side of CLA, Robert Chinetsky. It'll bring you the whole article, and you can see that CLA increases inflammation in the body. It might also not be as effective as for weight gain as it's been led to believe, because a lot of it's in animal studies, and the human studies show that it's got really no significant effect at all. So yeah, there you go. I would not use it. I don't recommend it. And yeah, go read that article for the full story.
All right, guys, last call. We got a few questions. And if you need to get in a question, this is the last call. All right. Here we go. Moving on. If doing the big compounds is direct arm work necessary, yes, it is. Look, you can't do all big compounds because your body's going to get fatigued. So as you get stronger, that impact and pressure on your body is going to increase. We need to there's so many black and white beliefs being pushed in the lifting world, the supplement world, the nutrition world. It's either all compounds or not. Well-rounded. Do your big compounds. Once you are fatigued, then it makes more sense to move on to less taxing movements. So you can still get a little bit of stimulus. You don't want to pound your body every single day with the same compounds and overwork movement patterns. So if you're doing a full body, for example, you might want to do a compound one day for chest, a body weight one day, and then a more moderate, maybe, like a dumbbell bench or machine chest press. So direct arm work, yes. When I was a power lifter, what I found out was that when I stopped doing arm work, and I stopped doing it for a couple of years, I was picking up a lot of strains in my biceps and brachialis. And my eccentrics felt super slow, and I could not figure out why. My strength was still there, but when I added in direct arm work, all those aches and pains and strains went away. So be well-rounded. There's no downside. Any additional thoughts on that, Robert?
I echo the thing that you usually say: make every single muscle group as big and as strong as possible. The most effective way to do that with the smaller muscle groups like the biceps, triceps, and calves is with isolation work. So yeah, give them direct work.
The only thing I'll say is you don't need an abundance of additional work. My clients, they do two biceps and 2 triceps exercises per week. And that's just for the average Joe. That's not trying to be Arnold or not trying to be, Dan Green.
Yeah.
E. Watson, I love lift. I love the lifting. Try to convince others to do it, but to no avail. Why can't I convince anybody? If you can figure out a motivational plan to get people moving, you will be a billionaire. You will be a billionaire.
Yeah.
It's just life. It's just life. You can't convince anybody to do anything. You can't. The only thing you can do in life is be a superhero. Be the best you can be. And then those that are around you that are serious about changing themselves will ask you questions. But it's not your job to convince anybody. Honestly, it's not. It's your job to be the best you and sit back. And if anybody has questions, you answer them. But you can't control the results. So stop. Honestly, don't try to play God. I can't control the results for anybody. All I can do is give them information.
Agreed.
Robert, how can you check if a supplement company sells quality supplements? Robert, what do you look for in a company to consider it legit?
For starters, non-proprietary blends. So make sure it's a open label, because most of the time, if somebody's got a prop blend on a product, they're trying to hide something, or they're underdosing, or they're inserting something sketchy in there that you would be best otherwise not taking. So that's kind of what just a baseline check whenever I'm considering recommending a supplement to somebody or using a supplement myself. Is it a transparently labeled product? If it is a prop blend, there is a minor chance I will take it if I know the company that is producing it and they are willing to disclose to me what the ingredients are and what the dosage is on there. Outside of that, you can look for third-party testing if they publish that, or if you email the company and say, hey, do you have third-party tests, which means they manufacture it at one contract manufacturing facility. They send it to an outside third party. They get that tested to say, hey, what we state is on the label is what is actually in the bottle. So you can check for that. You can always ask me if I think a supplement company is quality or not. You can look for certain things like the Informed Choice logo, or the NSF logo is another good one. Those both show that those are all safe for, drug tested athletes to use. And a lot of it is just boils down to education. What is the company's track record? Have they had any run-ins with the FDA? Have their facilities been rated by the FDA? Do they have a history of using bad ingredients or sketchy ingredients? Are they using prop blends? Are they using salacious and scandalous marketing lingo? Are they saying things like X compound was in a study to show improved muscle growth by 8,000%? If you're seeing that, then just, do the moonwalk away from that company. And then also educate yourself on what ingredients you're actually looking for. Go check examine.com or check out some of the articles I've written for, the actual efficacious dosages on certain ingredients, and have that knowledge with you when you go to check out a supplement.
Yeah, and Robert is on Instagram at the Supplement Engineer. Slide into his DM. I'm sure he'd be happy to give you a brief opinion. Ben on Adventures, random thought. I've gotten my best progress for dumbbell curls in the 20 to 30 rep range. You know, with exercises like that do not allow for a lot of progress, and by a lot of progress, I mean you could start with 20-pound dumbbells when you're 18 and be doing 50-pound dumbbells when you're 40. Side laterals, you know, a lot of the lesser impactful dumbbell exercises. It's easier to progress in that rep range, you know, a generally higher rep range. So nothing wrong with that. And NADPAD says his questions are not posting. Not us. YouTube's glitchy. Post it up now. If not, slide into my DM at Ben the Barman. I'd be glad to help you out. All right. Stephen, progression approaches for isolation exercises. First thing you need to understand is each exercise is different. Some exercises don't have a lot of progress. So side laterals, for example, you're never going to get to the point where you get to 120-pound side lateral raises. So one of the things I like to do with exercises like that do not allow for a lot of progress is I like to use them as in the role of a finisher. You could do run the rack on side laterals where you do 10s, 15s, 20s, 25s, 30s, and then back down. Kind of, you know, a big grand finale. You can do rest pause work. They are not a primary hypertrophy mover, so they are best used in that type of role. Yeah. Some isolation exercises you can do more progression with, so you really don't need any fancy progression approach. Any thoughts, Robert?
I would just say focus on adding reps, and then you could eventually try to increase volume by adding sets or increasing frequency. But for isolation exercises, it's just a slow grind.
Yeah, and don't get sloppy with them. I mean, bodybuilding culture has a tendency to turn compound exercises into isolations, meaning they try to focus only on chest, on bench press. And then on isolations, they try to turn them into compounds where all of a sudden you're doing these super sloppy side lateral raises. Don't be that guy.
Correct.
Read B, garlic supplements for cholesterol, blood pressure, and reducing the chance of getting colds.
I mean, there's some data that shows if you're taking like 600 to 1,200 milligrams of garlic supplements a day, you might have a slight reduction in that, or slight improvements in cholesterol and blood pressure ratings, and a slight reduction in getting a cold. But I would just rather add garlic to my food and cook it. You know, have a couple of cloves of garlic a day, one with your lunch and one with your dinner. Garlic's delicious. It's got basically no calories, and it's got a bunch of little fun bioactive compounds in it that support overall health and wellness. So, yeah, it's kind of it's an okay supplement, but I mean, there's not a tremendous body of research behind it. It's going to give you a marginal effect, but this is usually done in people that are, you know, very overweight, hypertensive, and with other various metabolic disorders.
You know, when it comes to supplements like that, you're absolutely right. Just eat the real food.
Yeah, cinnamon supplements or something. Just throw some on your oatmeal, or, you know, your bowl of yogurt or something.
Yeah, it's if you don't want to chop up a clove of garlic, you know, you can get it in the store and you know, already chopped. So that's an easy one. Nigel, finishing leg workouts with high rep body weight lunges. Say a set or two of thoughts. Yes. I tried to do that with Alan Roberts the first time we trained the legs, and he said, "You're cray cray, bitch. You're cray cray." No, he didn't say that, but he did make a video about how he nearly died. So, yeah, I do that with every one of my clients that can handle it. I give them walking lunges as a finisher.
Yeah.
Mob, are pull-ups alone sufficient for lat growth? No. Do not go into the mindset of seeking one exercise alone for anything. You know, if you're trying to win a war, you don't ask yourself, is this weapon alone sufficient for winning the war? The answer is usually multi-prong attack. Any thoughts on that, Robert?
Exactly. It's just like for your diet. Do I only need to eat whey protein to satisfy all my nutritional needs? That's basically what you're asking with this question. You're trying to take one single thing and see if it's going to cover this. The lats are the largest single muscle group in the body. So the single muscle, the lat is the largest sheet. It's got multiple different insertion points. It's going to attaches all the way along the back part of your body. So, I mean, you can hit it from all these different angles. So why would you just want to do pull-ups to do that? You can do rows. You can do all different. You can do chin-ups, wide grip chin-ups, close grip chin-ups, pull-ups, pull-downs, straight arm pull-downs. You can do so many different exercises that are beneficial in their own unique ways. Don't limit yourself.
One thing I find is by people preaching lat pull-downs as the be-all, end-all is pull-ups, excuse me.
Yeah.
They're usually really good at pull-ups. That's their trick. That's
right.
their pony. And that's fair enough. But the back can take a big beating. So when it comes to training the back, I like to train it with all the weapons, deadlifts and barbell rows and dumbbell rows and seated cable rows and lat pull-downs and pull-ups and inverted rows and every machine rows, whatever you can get. Give it a wide degree of stimulation. And both Robert and I need a wide degree of stimulation as well.
I do love to be stimulated.
Yes. William, thoughts on Grayskull LP for beginners? Deadlift once a week with alternating overhead press and bench and alternating chin-ups and rows. I've seen the program. It's okay. It's a little bit minimal. But look, William, I'm going to be honest with you, and I get these types of questions all the time. What do you think of strong lifts? What do you think of Grayskull? What do you think of starting strength? What I think is I wrote a book that I think is better. It's called Massive Iron. And I wrote it because I believe it's a little bit more well-rounded for the average individual. These are fine programs, okay? But they're all cut from the same cloth. And it's not a cloth that I believe is the best path for most people. So I'll leave it at that. My book, Massive Iron, over at superlivingtoday.com. Kelly Markham, DHEA for older lifters.
Yeah, like most hormones, it's natural production of DHEA, which is kind of one of the parent steroid sex hormones. So everything else is made from DHEA. Don't confuse it with DHA, which is one of the essential omega-3 fatty acids in the body. So DHEA, it does have some evidence, especially in people 40 plus, as far as some longevity stuff, enhancing hormone production, especially in women with fertility, things like that. Kelly, I'm not sure if it's girl Kelly or guy Kelly, so I'll try to cover both aspects here. It's got some benefits in people with low testosterone that it can boost it there. Might improve levels of energy. So yeah, 25, 50 milligrams range. If you're a 40, 50 plus individual, it's worth looking into.
All right, Robert, last question. Michael Wall. I do bodyweight workouts every day and total body workout, bodyweight workouts with other types of exercises every day. That's mainly due to military service. Should I rotate body weight, my bodyweight workouts? Robert, any thoughts?
I would say, what is your progression approach? I mean, there comes a point where, yeah, you're going to get results doing standard push-ups and standard body weight squats, and you can do a shit ton of volume of those. But at some point, if you're looking to continue progressing with that, look to figure out some kind of way to either load it up with a weight vest, increase the difficulty by maybe elevating your feet on a chair, box, bench, ottoman, sofa, something like that to, maybe increase the difficulty of your push-ups, play around with archer push-ups. Make sure you're doing some back work, because with body weight, it can be tough if you're not including in inverted rows or Australian pull-ups, as well as regular chin-ups and pull-ups. For legs, look into Bulgarian split squats, 100 rep sets of walking lunges, which sounds like death, but it's awesome. Yeah, do you need to do the exact same workout each day? I wouldn't, unless you're doing it just for like a general conditioning purpose. It's a very open-ended question. So I maybe split into an upper-lower split and look for some more advanced progressions of the bodyweight exercises you're using. If you can give us a breakdown with that, I love bodyweight workouts, and that's what most of my training consists of. So if you can go on a Steve's site and gives us some more information on that, we can help you, come up with a more detailed plan.
Yeah, I like exercise variation. Doing the same exercise, once you get proficient at it, you're going to need more volume, or you're going to need some kind of a progression, some kind of way of making it more difficult. And if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again every day, you just increase the risk of overuse injuries. And I think overuse injuries are more of, everybody's obsessed with overtraining, but I believe overuse injuries are more of a serious threat to most individuals.
Yeah.
Just to be on the safe side and for good mental health, just for something different, try some different exercise variations each day.
Yeah.
All right, William. Okay, thanks. Sorry about the question. I deleted them, and I'll look into buying a book. Thank you, William. And which one do you all prefer? Doing all sets with the same weight or increasing weight every set and having the last set hardest? I do not like having the last set the heaviest. In my opinion, you should always do the heaviest set first, unless let's say you're a 405-pound squatter and you're doing 205 for 10, 225 for 10, 245 for 10, 265 for 10, where it's a very low intensity relative to your 1 rep max. So in that case, it really doesn't matter. But as far as doing all sets with the same weight, I prefer all sets with the same weight because you're in the gym to challenge your body. There's no right or wrong way. It just cuts down on changing plates and doing math for 30% of your workout. Robert, which do you prefer?
I prefer to use the same weight across all the same working sets. Obviously, take as many warm-up sets as you need to, but trying to do, I guess, the old pyramid or reverse pyramid training where you do the 15, 12, 8 thing, so where you're using your 15 rep max and then you're using your 12 rep max and then you're using your 8 rep max and doing that hard set of 8, you're fatiguing yourself unnecessarily. I mean, not unnecessarily, but you're ultimately limiting how much weight you can lift on your top end set if you're going to close to failure on all of those earlier sets. So you're actually like holding back from what your true strength and muscle output is right there. So that's why I like the consistent set approach. It's also just easier to track stuff and you know when to move up. So if you're going for 4x10 with 80-pound dumbbells on the bench press, do you want to track, is it easier to track your 4x10, or do you want to say, all right, I'm going to do, the 30s for 15 reps. I'm going to do the 45s for 12s. I'm going to do the 60s for 10s, and I'm going to do, the 80s for 8s. And then, so let's say you get all of those. So which one do you decide to bump up first? Is it the 15 rep? Is it the 12 rep? Is it the 10 rep? Is it the 8 rep? It just puts in way much more complexity into the situation than you need to.
Yeah. I mean, just to end cap this, when I was at my strongest, I would do both. I would do my big compound movements, bench, squat and deadlifts. I would do my heavy and then do back off sets. And then for my assistance work, it was always the same weight, so I didn't have to overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are jumping ship. If I missed your question, head over to Instagram at BenTheBarman, at BenTheBarman. Slide in my DM, or you can email me, BenTheBarman@gmail.com. Link down below to if you want a phone consult with me. It's a little bit less expensive than coaching. You can find Robert on Instagram, YouTube, his podcast at The Supplement Engineer. And Robert's been here. We've been here 3 or 4 weeks in a row at 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Robert, thanks for joining me. Any final thoughts?
Everybody enjoy your weekends. It's Memorial Day. Enjoy the time out there. Get outdoors, exercise, have some fun, relax. Spend times with your loved ones, and send Steve a lot of nude pictures of yourselves.
Yep. Train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins. All right, Robert. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye, Steve. Thanks.